Well, I think the issues that matter most to Wisconsinites have remained unchanged. And frankly, there's been a lot of attention on other things politically, but the high cost of prescription drugs, the fears and anxiety about losing health insurance coverage for people with pre-existing conditions, the threats that have been posed to the Affordable Care Act, whether in court or just by cutting funding and support, as the Trump administration has done. These should be at the center of our attention and the center of our focus. And I do actually think there's an opportunity. We heard from the president during his State of the Union address that he wanted to do something about pharmaceutical prices, and he talked about wanting to do something to make sure that people who have pre-existing conditions have coverage. Well, we need to keep him to his promises. Haven't yet, but there is bipartisan support on Capitol Hill to take bold action on these issues. The House has already passed a very strong bill to lower prescription drug prices. It includes a bipartisan measure that I authored called the Fair Drug Pricing Act, and I think we could make a lot of progress. We've just resolved to work together.
So right now it's kind of at a standstill in the Senate. They haven't touched it yet.
Unfortunately, Mitch McConnell has not chosen to schedule this measure for a vote, despite the fact that many of the provisions within it have support of both Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, and certainly had support from both sides when it passed the House of Representatives. So, one of the things that worries me is how much power the pharmaceutical industry has to influence the agenda in Washington. And part of why it's so important for citizens to be involved and speak out is to help push back against that and help me persuade my colleagues that they need to stand up to these folks and hold them accountable for what they're doing.
What are some of the things that constituents have told you about the high drug prices, or other senators have mentioned in Washington that their constituents are saying about the high prices?
I've had the honor of hearing from constituents all around the state over the years, and even just in the past few days. The stories are heartbreaking in many cases, and you have everything from somebody who's, say, struggled with a lifelong chronic condition, diabetes or multiple sclerosis, and have just gradually seen the cost of their life-saving prescription go up and up and up, and their insurance hasn't kept pace with that, and they find themselves literally making choices between groceries and insulin or whatever thing that we're talking about. We've also seen some cases where it's a sudden, unexpected issue that they're grappling with. So I met with a father on Friday whose child had a severe allergic reaction. Most people who experience a severe allergic reaction would get an EpiPen. Epinephrine is the drug. But his son was not yet big enough to have a full dose from an EpiPen, and they prescribed him instead a different device that delivers a smaller amount of what he needs. It was $5,000 retail price.
Now, you did mention...
And, imagine his fear. He ended up explaining that he got an EpiPen and is just praying that his son will gain 7 pounds before he ever has any other sort of allergic reaction. But imagine having to make those choices.
So just exactly what is it in this bill that you're proposing or that you authored that would bring the price of drugs down? How would that work?
Yeah, so there's several elements to the one that the House just passed. That bill does something that I support strongly, which gets Medicare involved in negotiating with the pharmaceutical companies for lower prices on behalf of the over 40 million people who are eligible for Medicare. And we know that will have ripple effects elsewhere too when you're talking about those sort of negotiations on that scale. Secondly, it contains my Fair Drug Pricing Act, What that does is it requires a pharmaceutical company to justify a price increase. You know, it's the pharmaceutical corporations that set the list price, and they do so and they just announce it. And we've seen EpiPens double, we've seen diabetes medications, insulin go up by 100% over just a number of 4 or 5 years. I think they do it just because they can, and if we require justification and transparency, I think we are going to be able to stem this crisis.
So similar to the way that prices for things like electricity or other utilities are set. Would that be a fair comparison?
There's transparency, a lot more transparency in most other industries compared to health, and in particular the drug pharmaceutical industry. What you have is a manufacturer who keeps all of their transactions secret. There's lots of things we support them doing, like research and development and investigating new drug options and new treatment options. But they also advertise on television. They also do stock buybacks and pay their executives bonuses, et cetera, as we've heard in some of the outrageous stories about the opioid producers. But that aside, then they work with middlemen called pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs. They work with them to get market share. The PBMs do discounts and rebates, and all of that's secretive. This is about the most opaque field you can be in, and until we get the facts and shine light on it, we're going to see, I think, corruption and basically these price changes without any justification.
Time for one more question.
And I guess you did mention the president talking about this in the State of the Union. He did include some money for drug price, addressing the drug prices and the increase in those in his budget. Did you like anything in the budget that you saw? Do you think it goes far enough?
Well, so far we have heard a lot of promises and pledges around this. We haven't actually seen the prices of pharmaceutical products go down or even level off, which is of great concern. I think the administration needs to work with us, needs to work with the Senate and the House. There are many bold ideas that could make a difference tomorrow if we work together.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.